All right. So there is so much on the internet about mindset, positive thinking, gratitude, changing your life by changing the way you think and all that. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking about divorce or going through one, you're probably rolling your eyes thinking, well, how's that going to help my problems? I'm still going to be going through a divorce. I'm still going to be worried about finances. I'm still heartbroken that my husband cheated on me and is now marrying someone else. I'm still upset that my kids are having fits and tantrums. So yes, I want to validate you and say that your problems are real, that you have every right to feel angry, bitter, upset, stressed. But what I want to talk about today is a new way of thinking so that you can get through these problems a lot better and so that you can think about moving on and how happy you're going to be in your future. So when I say a new way about thinking, I actually stole that title from my guest. So those are not my words, those are my guest's words. And my guest is Kat Artemis, and Kat wrote this book called Directed Thoughts: A New Way to Think About Thinking, How to Take Control of Your Thoughts, Create Your Own Happiness, and manifest your best life. Hi, Kat.
Hello, nice to see you, Jackie.
It's always nice to see you. And I want to tell my listeners I met Kat in person at this amazing women's conference that we went to about 6 months ago. And really, Kat, you are what your brand and your book are, like bright and positive and energetic. You're not faking it.
No.
But what I want to tell my listeners is that in your book, you talk about how you used to think differently and you were negative.
Mhm.
So tell me your history of how you decided to write this book and how you came to the revelation that thinking more positively will manifest good things.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I love, love, love talking about this stuff. I love talking about this book, and weirdly, I like talking about how this book can help with divorce. I myself went through a divorce after 22 years, and so I do very much empathize and sympathize with everyone who's going through something like that. But for me, what led me to writing this book is for about 2 decades, 2.5 decades, I really suffered deeply from negative thinking, from a way overactive negative ego, from a lot of deep depression. I mean, sometimes it was hard to get up and do anything. And I just couldn't get out from under it. And one day, I was in my late 30s, and one day I woke up and I just thought, I'm so tired of smiling at the outside world when I don't mean it. On the inside, I'm breaking, and on the outside, I'm just smiling and trying to get along when I felt like I was being dragged down, by this lead balloon of negative thinking that I couldn't stop. At times when I was married, my husband would say, well, you could go away for the weekend or you could do something. I'd be like, I can't go anywhere because I can't get away from my own thoughts. But that morning that I woke up and decided, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. I made a commitment to myself to figure out how to move forward. I had already done medicine. I had already done therapy. I had already done group therapy. So I had done a lot of things that had mild success occasionally, but nothing that got me to a place where, for instance, I could navigate my divorce and keep my sanity intact. So from that, I began this quest, and it was really a quest, like night and day, everything I could find, from articles to books to podcasts to videos, anything I could find that I could learn. I dug deep into mindset, spirituality, and the law of attraction. And I didn't learn it all immediately, but I started that quest, and it I did that all, like, I mean, that was 19 years ago now. And what I've learned is every single day when you make a little effort towards changing your mindset. And positive thinking has sometimes negative connotations now. People call it toxic positivity. And so, what I say in my book is nobody's going to be positive 24/7. What we have to remember is that when you get your ego and your mind kind of at a neutral state, you can start to lean more towards what your North Star is. If your North Star is your happiness, you can start making decisions towards that, which makes you feel happier inside. And when you do feel a negative thought, you know that it's something, wait, that's a negative thought. I don't like what's happening here. Now I can turn and go in this direction. So, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
so you're saying that you're self-taught. You sounds like you spent years reading and researching this,
Yes.
and it wasn't like an aha moment. It was like many aha moments as you learned all of these new ways to think, and
Yeah,
then gradually, all right, so now you wanted to share it with people, so you wrote this book.
I did.
And did you agree with me that like thinking positively and doing all these things that we're about to discuss is not going to make your problems go away? You're always going to have problems. And when those problems go away, new problems are going to come. Like people think when I get divorced, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, it is, but then you're going to have something else. There's
Yeah.
always going to be something. But do you agree that by thinking differently, what's the benefit of that?
So I love that question because it's not what we think, it's how we think about it. It's the choice that we make on how we're thinking about that thing. So we can look at something and say it's the end of the world, or we can look at something and say, what is this going to do for me? Instead of why is this happening to me? What is this teaching me? And that all can sound kind of contrite when you're in the middle of it. I get it. But when you start to ask yourselves these questions, like if you really start to say, what do I want? Do I want to be happy? Because when I was going through my divorce, there were many moments when it always seemed like outside influences would meddle and then bring us down, and add negativity, add fuel to the fire. And finally, one day I just said to myself, I can keep doing this and getting down and dirty, or I can just be like, you know what? I want my happiness. I'm going to go in that direction. And so it was how I chose to think about it. It was my decision on how I was thinking about things that drove me forward and helped me, create a positive mindset in a really hard situation.
And when you create a positive mindset, it's like you handle the problems less emotionally. Like
Hmm.
you just get down to business, I
Hmm.
find, and you just go, okay, well, how am I going to solve this shit show? But
Yeah.
you just do it instead of saying, I can't believe this is happening again. It's always bad. I mean,
Mhm.
like just okay, let me handle the shit show and move on because there's going to be another one. And so just handle it and focus on something better, something else. But
Yes.
but Kat, I want to tell my listeners, tell me if you agree with this, that you can't just, we're not telling people to brush everything
No.
aside. You have to cry and grieve and be pissed off when things don't go your way, right? So isn't it
Totally.
kind of a fine line?
Yeah, I think you have to feel every range of emotions. I mean, we're alive to feel everything, and we shouldn't feel like we're not allowed to be grieving. I mean, I feel like the year that we separated, I think I cried every day for a year after that. Like, and I had good moments in between there, but I was always like on my way to work and my way home. And so I think we're allowed to grieve and we're allowed to get angry. What I say in my book is if you can strive to have more of a positive mindset, meaning when I say positive mindset, I mean a mindset that's looking for the good, a mindset that's looking for something better for you, a mindset that's driving towards your happiness, even 60% of the time versus 40% with all that other stuff, you will improve your situation very, very fast and it will multiply with that kind of mindset. Absolutely.
Okay, let's get into the 10 steps to directed thoughts and a happier, healthier life. So I'm going to read from your book the 10 steps, and then you can just explain each one. Okay. So,
Sure.
number one, understanding negativity, and you say negativity is sneaky. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this first step is a very foundational step. So when you read the book, you'll find that this step is very explanatory, but it doesn't give you direction. So what it means by sneaky is that it's everywhere, everywhere we look. And in our culture, it feels very normal. So right now, I think people are starting to feel that negativity with things that are happening in our country, but really, you can turn on any show, you can turn on music, you can turn on the news, and there's this thread of negativity that runs through everything. So, the understanding negativity is really about becoming aware, really like stepping back and saying, what am I feeding myself? What am I feeding my thoughts? What am I feeding my emotions? Am I diving it? So, when I went through my divorce, I didn't dive in too much. Like, I went through more programs like yours, Jackie, and less of the let's get together and like hate on everything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I found that for me, it made me feel worse, and I wanted to propel myself forward somehow, especially, being later in life, it just felt crazy to have to start completely over. The other thing about understanding negativity in this chapter is really learning how your ego controls how you think and feel. And so the ego is that voice that's always running around in our heads that never stops. It's the voice that judges everything and everyone all the time. Is this good? Is this bad? Did I win? Did I lose? Did that person win or lose? Am I rich? Am I poor? Like, it's always like comparing everything. It's always chattering. I always tell people, if you want to know who the ego is in your head, just try to stop talking, and immediately that voice will just pop up and just go at it.
Yeah.
And for most of us who have been in a negative culture, we have that negative ego voice just on autopilot all the time, just chattering. And so, I always say, like, that's why people feel bad when they're trying to feel good, is they haven't taken care of that chattering voice. They don't even recognize it,
Mhm.
to question, is what the ego is saying, is that even true? And so the ego can really get us into a lot of trouble during our divorce. I have a friend going through a divorce that is so focused, her ego is so focused on things that I keep saying, is that really going to be like, is that helping you right now? And she was
Right.
like, no, it's not helping, because the ego wants to win. And we
Right.
have to
Right.
teach our ego to like calm down and go in a new direction.
Okay. Now, what I'm taking away from this is some practical examples. Don't watch the news while you're eating. Like, eat dinner and like put on some classical music, or just have conversation if you're married or with don't turn the TV on, because you're just going to get negativity, whether it's like a depressing show, the news, anything really. You're
Yep.
right. Okay, and then the other thing is those toxic people. So they say you become the 5 people that you hang around with most often.
Mhm.
And so, who are those people that really just make you feel kind of yucky when you get home? Like, why am I continuing to go out to dinner with this girl or play pickleball with her when I can't even, I just feel bad about myself when I get home. So, those were the things I was thinking of. Okay, we need to get to the break. You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I am your host. And I am here today with a great guest. Her name is Kat Artemis, and Kat is a positive mindset coach. She's the author of her book. I'm going to hold it up. Directed Thoughts, A New Way About Thinking. Kat, I am loving this conversation. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have 9 more steps, so we're going to have to hurry. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, I am talking about directed thoughts to a happier, healthier life. My guest is Kat Artemis, positive mindset coach and author of her book, Directed Thoughts, A New Way to Think About Thinking. Before we get on to the 9 more steps to a happier, healthier life, Kat, how do people get your book and get in touch with you?
Yep, you can get my book on Amazon. It's on Amazon as paperback, hardback, and it's on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. And you can get in touch with me on directedthoughts.com. You can find me there. You can also find me on my Instagram page on Directed Thoughts as well.
Love it. All right. Step number 2, staying in the moment. So people often, this is an eye roller. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stay in the moment. Well, how's that going to help the $20,000 of debt I'm in? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that is such a great example. I had a situation years ago when I was married when this is when staying in the moment became really important to me. Now, I told you I study a lot about spiritual growth as well. Um, we were in a situation financially that was really scary. It was very much like, are we going to be able to keep our house kind of scary? And one night I was crying as I used to do before I went to bed, and I was praying, and I was just kind of like, God, you got to help us. Like, I don't know what to do, just in the sheer panic, like this begging kind of panic. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I got this thought, and the thought was, you have everything you need right now in this moment. And I had never once thought about that. And I immediately started arguing, yeah, but this could happen and this could happen and this could happen. And we could go broke and we could, I could end up begging people for money. And the thought said, but you have everything you need right now in this moment. And I listened and I thought, yeah, like right now in this space, before the future and after the past, I actually am okay. And if you do that, you can actually create enough space to give yourself a moment to take a breath, to think strategically. And that kind of goes into the next step, which is choosing your thoughts. Because once you can kind of get yourself in that place, give yourself some space. And there's actionable ways to do that. So like the whole book is how to do it, not what to do. Like this is, I name exactly how you can get, and it's not hard. You think about where you're sitting, think about how your body's feeling, what you're smelling, what you're feeling. Just get into the moment and tell yourself, like, give yourself a break from what's coming.
Okay, I just had the funniest thought to my listeners and to you, Kat. Have you ever seen the movie Gone with the Wind?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sure most people have. So remember, Scarlett would always say, I can't think about that today. I'll think about that tomorrow. Well,
Yeah,
how perfect is that?
that's
She's
so
staying
perfect.
in the
That's
moment
right.
and choosing her thoughts,
That's right.
you know?
Yes.
And so really
Making a
that's,
choice. Yeah,
yeah, I just love it.
I
Okay,
love that. Yeah, too
let's,
often we forge ahead without really thinking things through. And I say this in the book, but especially if you're going through a divorce or if you're working on your one of the examples I gave in the book is when I thought I was going to lose my job, what did I do? And I outline, like, if you can get into the present moment and choose your thoughts, you can actually make a plan that will help you move forward without all the noise. And the one thing I would say is, take a moment, take a beat, and then say to yourself, I'm going to make an appointment with myself to sit down and really think about this. So if you get some news about your divorce and you feel this well, you say, okay, Saturday morning, 8 a.m., I'm taking myself to Starbucks and I'm going to write this out and I'm going to think about it. And when you do that, it is a game changer with how you react and how quickly you can get results.
okay, I love that. And I want to add to it. You can also say, look, nothing's going to happen between now and 8 o'clock in the morning when I go to Starbucks on Saturday. So there's no urgency in this.
Yes.
It can wait. So right
Yeah.
now I'm gonna
Yeah.
go on with my girls' night or whatever I'm doing. I'm not gonna go to the bathroom and cry and have a fit. I'm just gonna go on with this. This is unfortunate that this came to me right now, but I'm gonna wipe it out of my mind. It's not easy to do, but I think it's sort of conditioning when you get to used to it, you do it.
I agree.
All
Yes.
right. Number 5, no, number 4, redefining the meaning.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, you attach meaning to just about everything. It's never the thing that has meaning, but what you think about the thing which gives it meaning.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does that mean?
I so this is a chapter favorite of a lot of my readers. They love this chapter. The very next sentence is, our meanings attach themselves. The meanings we give actually attach themselves to our ego. So if we've defined something, 20 years ago that we don't like, and we never think about it again because it's attached to us, the emotion of disliking it is already in us. We don't ever stop to think like, should I really be feeling this? Can I change this meaning? So we might say, like, a perfect example is, your boss looks at you one day and doesn't, give you like an answer that you would like. So the meaning that you attach to is he doesn't like me, he's mad at me, I'm going to get fired, like just any of those things. When we could actually think about it and say, well, where did this come from? Like I did that years ago, and I realized some of that fear and negativity that would bubble up in the meanings I gave things actually stemmed from my childhood. And it stemmed from a fear that I had of not being liked. And I carried it with me for years. And when I finally thought about it and redefined how I wanted to look at how or think about how my boss was talking to me, it made it so much easier to say, well, hold on, like that, I don't have to define somebody not smiling at me as not being liked. That's just, I have lots of examples in the chapter, but the redefining how we think about things is a game changer.
And that is really hard to do if you've believed something since childhood. One example I want to give is that, so I'm 59 years old, okay? In my life, I grew up, my mom never let us in the kitchen. I never learned how to cook. I never liked it. It was such a chore for me. I basically raised my kids on takeout, and like I'd make stuff that was like okay, very mediocre. Few months ago, I got really, really into cooking. No, I'm going to take that back. A couple of years ago. And I want to tell people Hello Fresh taught me the basics of how to cook. I started getting it. I started ordering like pretty healthy meals from Hello Fresh. Okay. Then I signed up for this cooking class, and I'm going to give her a shout out, with Hannah McKittrick of My Intuitive Health. I am cooking things, and nobody who knows me can believe it. I am like cooking the most healthy, delicious restaurant. You would get this in the most fanciest, expensive restaurant you went to. And it's so much fun for me, and it's so easy. And it took me a long time to let go of that thought. You're a bad cook. You can't do this. What are you doing in the kitchen? Why bother? And I am the happiest person. My family like cannot even believe it. So if I can do it, you can, people who are listening can change anything you want to change.
Absolutely. I love that example, Jackie. That is so perfect. It's, once you changed your mindset and you decided that you could do it, then you did it, and you did little steps along the way, and now you're cooking restaurant quality food. That's amazing. So no,
All
I
right. So we sort of talked about step number 5, understanding your past, but is there anything else in that chapter that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, so the only thing I would say on this that really gets people to think, and you do it, so your ego will raise up and be like, no, no, no. So, but the thing to keep in mind is that the past really isn't happening anymore. We want to believe it. It's in our heads, but it's not outside our door now. So the things good and bad that we hold on to really are gone. They're
Mhm.
not here anymore. So if something happened, it doesn't mean you can't take from that experience. But what it does mean is that one thing that happened to us, we should not continue to recreate day in and day out by feeling the pain that it caused us that one time. Like at some point, we get to choose that we have healed from it. We respect that it happened. We respect ourselves for owning it, but we can move on from it. And moving on from that tethered past is very helpful in creating a positive mindset, especially when you're going through something really hard like divorce.
Okay, now it sort of ties into step number 6, which is forgiving yourself and others.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of listeners who are thinking, well, I'm never going to forgive my ex. He cheated, or he treated me like crap, or I wasted 20 years with him and I was never happy. How could I forgive him? Tell my listeners how forgiving other people, and then we'll get into forgiving yourself, but forgiving others benefits you.
Right. So that's the key statement too. Forgiving others benefits you. It certainly doesn't mean that you have to stay attached to that person, that you have to like that person, that you have to appreciate anything about that person. They can be completely off on, you can banish them to a mental island. But forgiving them just means releasing the pain that you have in your own heart. Because when you hold on to it, you're the one that stays stuck, not that other person. You're literally punishing yourself over and over and over by not releasing that person, by
And
not releasing the pain.
and forgiving does not mean that it didn't happen and you should forget about it or you should say it was okay either.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, you can 100% say it was wrong. It should have never happened. I disagree with this person's actions. But then you can also say, but I'm not going to hold on to it because when I do, it hurts my heart and it hurts me and it's keeping me stuck. Meanwhile, that other person, I've seen this so many times. The other person is like off living their best life, and this other person is like angry and mad and stuck. And it's because the person who's mad and angry has kept it and held on to it. And so when you release it, you're not saying any of that's wrong, but you are saying, I choose me over that pain and that person. I choose my own happiness. And therefore, I'm just going to become neutral to it. I'm going to allow that person to be who they are, and whatever consequences they have, they get. I'm turning my attention towards my North Star, which is peace and happiness.
Okay, which also leads me into I tell people forgiving yourself for mistakes is the number one catalyst to moving on and being happy after divorce. I swear it is. Y- y- Everyone makes stupid mistakes. I can't even count how many I've made. There's way too many in life. If you don't forgive yourself and you beat yourself up over it and you say, I can't believe I did this, I should have done this, it's almost impossible to move on.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. We beat ourselves up, but we all do things that are wrong. And nobody is getting out of this life without having done things that they regret or that they feel bad about. And in the book I say, why does there have to be a time frame on how long somebody should feel bad or how long we should feel bad? You know what you did. You know you won't do it again. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself. And yes, it may take time, and you may have to, do some therapy, read some books, whatever you need to do. But at some point, you can say, look, when I know better, I've done better. And that's good enough, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, number 7, using your inner voice.
Hmm.
If you want to change your circumstances, you must change how you speak to yourself. I love that one. Give me
Yeah.
an example.
Well, I think if you want to, okay, so here's an example just for today. So I was supposed to get new furniture today or Wednesday, and so I gave my son all my living room furniture. I literally have nothing left but a TV in there and one light. Have carpets cleaned this afternoon. I'm all ready to go. So here's my inner thought. Here's what would have happened. So I got a call and they said, "Hey, guess what? That furniture you want won't be until the end of October." And I was like, oh, well, I don't have any furniture in my living room. And me 20 years ago would have flipped out. I would have been like, this always happens to me. Everything's wrong. It's going wrong. But instead, I said to myself, okay, you know what? That's okay. I got off the phone and I actually said to myself, how do I want to react to this? Because like I need furniture in my living room. And I thought, you know what I'm going to say? I want this furniture now or something better. I want this now or something better. And I just started saying it. I want this now or something better. And in my mind, like that is how I start like and we'll start getting into the law of attraction. But when you start to create those thoughts, and I believe it because I've done that enough to know when I cast my own fortune out there, it will absolutely come back to me like a boomerang. I was not about to sit there and say this company and I'm going to go somewhere else, none of those things. Like I'm going to get this furniture sooner, or I'm going to have something better, and I don't know how, but it will all take care of itself. And so I think that, that inner voice has to be a voice that supports you. instead of the inner voice that's like, the opposite. This company and blah, blah, I shouldn't have gone to them. Then
Right, right.
makes
Because
me feel
they
bad.
didn't do it on purpose. It's not really their fault. And I bet you as the days go by, it'll get closer, and before you know it, the furniture will be here.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to number 8, trust creates belief.
Yep.
What does that?
So yeah, so the reason why I say that is because after you do these first 7 steps, and there's a lot of work in those first 7 steps to get your ego under control and handle your past and unleash your forgiveness. But then how do you create what's ahead of you? You've already done all this work now. You've got these autopilot thoughts under control. You're talking to yourself better. You're tipping that scale 60/40. So then how do you get though to a place where you're attracting things back to you that you want to attract? And that bridge really is trusting in the process. Because otherwise, if you don't create this belief that things can be better for you, they're not going to get better. Perception is everything. So I always say, like, think about it like when you turn on the faucet at your house, you just trust that there's water. When you go to the shower, you just trust. When you go to Starbucks, you trust that there's coffee. And when you decide to change how you're thinking and go in a new direction, you have to trust in that direction, even if you've yet to see the results.
Okay, what comes to mind is a divorced person who's listening.
Hmm.
Okay, and you and I both went through a divorce, so we know how we felt. You always say things like, "What if I don't get the house?
Hmm.
What if my ex remarries this woman and my kids have to deal with this nightmare of a woman? What
Hmm.
if I never meet anyone and I'm like 70 and I'm still single?"
Oh,
So just trust that it's all going to work out. Maybe he'll marry her, maybe he won't. It'll be fine. Your kids will be fine. You will meet someone. You will get the house if you want the house. And if you don't, you'll deal with it when you find out you don't. So let's not even worry about it. So it's about just trusting that it's all going to work out. And I have to quote my mom because she always says to me, she's been saying this to me my whole life. Everything always works out. And that's kind of the same thing. Just
yeah,
trust. Have
yeah,
faith in yourself to
yeah,
make the best decisions as possible. Have faith in God and have faith just in the whole process.
absolutely.
All right,
When
we are so out of time, but I can't not have step number 10, which is intentional attraction, because this is really important. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the intentional attraction is the law of attraction, which there's a lot of woo-woo around the law of attraction, but what you really need to just understand, and there's examples in the book about this, and I talk about all the stuff I've attracted using this. But when you finally get your thoughts 60/40 going in the right direction, the law of attraction is what I consider a universal mirror. It's just reflecting back to you at all times what's really in your heart and what your beliefs are. And so if you believe that things aren't going to work out, normally you're going to see that downturn, that things aren't working out. But if you believe, as you just mentioned, Jackie, that things will happen, things you can get that house, you can do these things, and then you put into action the steps that it takes to get there, you will actually start to see the law of attraction working in your favor.
So is
Uh,
that the same thing as manifesting?
yeah, yes,
It is.
it totally is. I mean, it's so many different names. What I say in the book is that a lot of people don't use law of attraction anymore because it sounds so woo-woo, and some people use manifesting. But to me, I when I got divorced, I was laying in my bed New Year's Eve and I was having just a mental breakdown. And I kept thinking, I just got a 30 at the age of 47, I just got a 30-year mortgage. I'm going to be paying on this house till I'm in my 80s. How am I supposed to do that? And, I just had so many things going wrong. And I sat up all of the sudden and I thought, you know what am I doing? I know better than this. I know that my thoughts create my life. And I grabbed my notebook out of the nightstand and I just started writing like all of my intentions. Like, what is my life really going to look like? And as soon as I did that, I knew the tides would start to change. I wrote out my intentions. I wrote out how I would feel. And one of those intentions was my house needs to be paid off. My house needs to be paid off like right now. And believe it or not, I don't, it's still so crazy. And I have so many examples in the book. That money came to me. That money came to me in full. I sent myself a check in mail. Like I did all kinds of stuff, but I wanted to make sure the universe knew like I needed that. And that it I put forth all of that and it came right back to me just like a good.
Okay, I love this because there's so many people who are going through a divorce who think like, I'm going to be alone or whatever. And like, I love the idea of just writing down. A lot of them don't know what they want. You get divorced and you're not really sure. And these life coaches and everything, they say like, "Well, what do you want your life to look like?" And you're like, "I don't know." Well,
Yeah.
just write down what you want. Just start writing down what
That's
you
how
want.
you want to
I
feel.
want to go to Europe. I want to
Mhm.
have a boyfriend at some point. I want to take an art class. I want to start therapy on a more regular basis. Anything that you want to do, just start writing it down and then just start reading those notes and trying to implement some of it, and
Totally.
it will just start happening. I just
Yeah.
love this whole conversation, Kat. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for taking the
My
time.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, to my listeners, again, Kat's book is called Directed Thoughts: A New Way to Think About Thinking and How to Take Control Over Your Thoughts, Create Your Own Happiness, and Manifest Your Best Life. And the cover, it reminds me of when you're on a plane and it's
Yeah.
all cloudy and the weather's horrible, and then the plane goes right through the clouds and it's like sunny and beautiful. It's my favorite time of a flight. I just love it.
Yes.
So
Yes. Thank
excellent
you.
cover. So, thanks again, Kat. And to my listeners, if you like what you heard and you want to listen to more podcasts, or you want to find trusted, vetted divorce professionals, or you want to read articles or download my mobile app or sign up for my free consult, come see me at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.